He only wanted a simple pizza to quiet the silence of his penthouse. But when the billionaire opened the door, he froze, because standing there wasn't just a delivery girl. It was her, Rachel, the first woman he ever loved. Now a struggling single mother with shadows in her eyes and a son to protect. Years had passed, wounds had deepened. But that one moment reopened everything. She wanted to leave. He begged for 5 minutes. But what happened after that night? No one could have imagined. If this story touches you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments. Where are you listening to this message from? Your support keeps this channel alive and full of love. It was close to midnight in Manhattan, and silence enveloped the sky like a velvet curtain. From the top floor of the Meridian Tower, Michael Al-Sayed stood barefoot, dressed in a crisp white shirt slightly unbuttoned, his figure outlined by the cold glow of the city lights streaming through the glass wall of his penthouse. The skyline shimmered, a breathtaking view of metal and ambition, but it only reminded him how far he'd climbed from the place where his heart once lived. His fingers curled around a half-empty tumbler of whiskey, the ice melting into something tasteless and warm. He hadn't eaten since morning. Meetings, mergers, endless phone calls, none of it had filled the aching void inside him. On impulse, he reached for his phone and ordered pizza, a childish craving, perhaps, or maybe a craving for something simpler, something human. 12 blocks away, Rachel Thompson zipped her worn-out delivery jacket against the chilly wind. Her shoes were soaked from the slush on the sidewalk, and her back throbbed from a long shift. The smell of mozzarella and oregano clung to her. Her phone pinged with a new delivery. Meridian Tower, PH1, penthouse. She glanced at the screen again to be sure. Her stomach knotted. The Meridian wasn't just any building. It was where billionaires slept, and secret deals were signed. She had never once delivered there. It wasn't a place for people like her. Her tired fingers tapped the elevator code, and the glass doors slid open with an elegant hiss. The ride up felt eternal. Her reflection in the mirror-lined walls showed a woman she barely recognized, eyes shadowed with fatigue, lips pressed tight in determination. When the elevator stopped at the top floor, she hesitated. This door wasn't just a door. It was the past colliding with the present in a heartbeat she hadn't expected. Michael opened the door before she even knocked, and the world fell away. They stood frozen. Two statues carved by memory and disbelief. Rachel's gloved hands gripped the pizza box so tightly, her knuckles whitened. Michael's eyes widened, a tremor moving through him as if the ground beneath him had shifted. "Rachel," he whispered, the name cracking like a prayer on his lips. She blinked once, twice. "Michael?" Her voice was hoarse from cold and surprise. Her heart thundered. He looked older, more angular, more composed. But his eyes hadn't changed. They still held that stormy shade of brown, intense, unreadable. The eyes that once made promises under starlit Brooklyn nights. "I didn't know you were in the States," she said flatly, as if that could explain this moment. He didn't respond at first. His gaze moved over her. Her messy ponytail, her faded jacket, the scar above her brow she'd gotten from falling off his bike when they were 15. "I live here now. You deliver pizza?" She bristled. "Yes. Got a problem with that?" Michael shook his head slowly. "No. I didn't expect—" "Neither did I," she wanted to say. "I didn't expect to see the boy who broke my heart. I need to go," she said instead, holding out the receipt. $17.80. He reached into his wallet and handed her a $100 bill, never looking away. "Keep the change," Rachel hesitated. "I don't need your charity." "It's not charity, it's gratitude." "For what?" "For showing up at my door tonight." The silence between them pulsed like a heartbeat. "Will you come in?" he asked suddenly. "Just for a few minutes." She froze. "I know it's weird, and maybe I'm being foolish, but it's been over a decade, Rachel. Please." Everything in her told her to turn around. She had deliveries to make. A son at home, bills unpaid, a life he had nothing to do with, but those eyes, those damned eyes, held something she wasn't ready for. She stepped in. The door closed behind her with a soft click, but it felt louder than a gunshot. The penthouse was pristine, polished, cold, Every surface glistened. Every piece of furniture looked untouched. It was luxurious, yes, but hollow. Just like him. Just like the space between them that used to be filled with dreams. They sat across from each other, not touching, barely breathing. "How long have you been here?" she asked, her voice a whisper. 4 years. I left Dubai after my father passed. Took over the company from here. And you never looked back?" Michael tilted his head. "I tried, but some things don't stay buried." Rachel looked away. "You disappeared." "My father sent me to a boarding school in London. I didn't have a choice. He destroyed every letter you sent." She flinched. "I thought you stopped loving me." "I never did." She scoffed, more from pain than disbelief. "And what now? You see me and—" "What? Want to rewrite the past?" "No," he said, softer now. "I just want 5 minutes of truth." Rachel's fingers tightened in her lap. "I have a son. He's 12. So I'm divorced. I'm barely holding everything together." Michael's expression didn't change. "What's his name?" "Lucas." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You always loved that name." She blinked, her throat tightening. "I never married," he said quietly. "I dated, danced through all the expectations, but none of them were you." "Stop. I can't. You're here, and all I can think is, maybe I got one more chance to fix the worst mistake of my life." Rachel stood, heart hammering. "This is insane." "Maybe. I should go." "Maybe you should." She walked to the door, pulse racing, but just as she reached for the handle, his voice stopped her. "Rachel, do you believe in fate?" She didn't turn around. "I used to. Then let this be that." She hesitated, just long enough for doubt to enter, just long enough to wonder, what if? Then the elevator swallowed her, and when the doors closed, she looked back. He was still standing there, watching, waiting, and something in her chest, something she thought had long since turned to ash, sparked. Rachel didn't sleep that night. She lay curled up on the worn couch in her small Brooklyn apartment, still in her delivery jacket, staring at the ceiling with wide-open eyes. The hum of the old radiator, the ticking of the clock on the wall, and the gentle snore of her 12-year-old son down the hallway. None of it could quiet the storm in her chest. She had looked into the eyes of her past, and they still knew her name. Meanwhile, in the quiet luxury of his penthouse, Michael sat alone at his grand piano, one he hadn't touched in years. His fingers hovered over the keys, but didn't press a single note. He couldn't stop thinking about her, the strength in her voice, the fire that hadn't faded, the pain that still echoed beneath her calm exterior. They were worlds apart now. His days were filled with board meetings and private jets, and hers with deliveries, scraped knees, and grocery lists. But the distance between their lives couldn't erase the memories etched into their souls. The next day was grey, the kind of sky that weighed heavy on your thoughts. Rachel stood at the sink, scrubbing a coffee-stained mug, her mind a million miles away. Her mother's soft coughing drifted from the bedroom. Grace had been getting worse. The treatments were brutal, and the money was never enough. Rachel had sold her engagement ring years ago. Now even Lucas noticed when she skipped dinner because she wasn't hungry. Lucas bounded into the kitchen, messy-haired and barefoot. "Mom, can I take the tablet to school for reading?" She kissed his forehead. "Only reading. No games during class." He grinned. "Deal." As he left, she whispered, "I love you," but her voice trembled. If only love paid for medicine. A knock came just before noon. She opened the door cautiously. Michael. He stood in jeans and a sweater, no driver, no entourage, just him, holding 2 coffee cups and a small paper bag. "Truce," he offered. She frowned. "What are you doing here?" "You forgot your change," he said, holding out the $100 bill folded into the bag. Her arms folded. "You tracked me down for that?" He shrugged. "I wanted to see you again, and I figured a cup of real coffee was the least I could offer." She sighed, torn between irritation and the flicker of something warmer. "My son's at school, my mother's resting. You've got 10 minutes. He stepped inside, cautious not to look too closely at the peeling paint or the threadbare rug. But Rachel saw the glance, and it stung more than it should have. "You don't have to pretend," she said coldly. "This place is falling apart. It's okay. I'm not ashamed. Michael set the coffee down on the table. You should be proud, Rachel. You're raising a kid, caring for your mom, working like hell. You're stronger than anyone I know. She studied him, looking for the lie, but his voice held no arrogance, just truth. I used to dream about this, she murmured, surprising herself. Us, together. Big city. My designs in every skyline. You always wanted to be an architect, he said softly. You used to draw on napkins during lunch. She smiled. And you used to steal them and pin them to your locker. Michael laughed. Still have one? Somewhere, crumpled, but mine. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was thick with memory. I named him Lucas, she said suddenly, because of that night in the field, remember? He did. A warm summer night, just before they were torn apart, lying on the grass behind her grandmother's house. They'd talked about baby names, futures, forever. She'd said she loved the name Lucas. He'd promised, if we ever have a son. He looked down. He's yours. She nodded. Completely. His father left before he was born. I'm sorry. Don't be, she replied. Lucas saved me. He made me fight, every day. Michael leaned forward. I want to help. Rachel's face hardened. Don't. You need it. And I don't want it. Why? Because every time someone helps, they expect something back, and I have nothing left to give. His eyes didn't flinch. Then let me give, without asking anything. She swallowed the lump in her throat. Why are you really here, Michael? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked around, not with pity, but with curiosity. This was her world, the world he'd been cut out of, and it was real. Because when I saw you last night, it was like breathing again after years underwater. Rachel turned her face away, ashamed of the tear threatening to fall. You don't get to say things like that. Not now. But I mean it. She shook her head. We can't just pick up where we left off. I'm not asking for that, he said gently. I just want to know you again. Her breath trembled. She hated that she still wanted to believe him. Michael stood slowly, as if afraid the moment might shatter. Come to coffee with me. Tomorrow. Just coffee. No past. No promises. She stared at him for a long time. Then finally she whispered, one coffee. He smiled. But as he left, Rachel leaned against the door, heart racing. Because one coffee had once been how it all began. The next morning, the city moved in its usual rhythm. Buses hissed to stops, steam curled from manholes, and people rushed through the sidewalks with coffees in hand, and nowhere to look but forward. But for Rachel, the world felt unnervingly still. She stood in front of her closet, biting her lower lip as she stared at the handful of outfits she owned. Nothing seemed right. What did one wear to meet the man who once held your entire future in his hands and then disappeared? She pulled on a soft grey sweater, simple, warm, and tied her hair back loosely. Lucas had already left for school, and her mum was resting. It was the first moment in weeks she wasn't working or worrying, and that alone felt foreign. Michael had texted a location, a quiet coffee shop tucked into a side street in Brooklyn Heights. Not flashy, not corporate, just nostalgic. A place where people still talked instead of typed. That alone made her nervous. He was already there when she arrived, seated by the window, staring out with a calm intensity she remembered from long ago. But this time, the boyish uncertainty was gone. In its place was a man who'd seen too much and still hoped for more. He stood as she entered. You came, he said, like it was a miracle. I said I would, she replied, pulling off her coat. I half expected you not to. Why? He smiled faintly. Because I'd understand if you didn't. They ordered drinks, black coffee for him, chai with almond milk for her. The moment the waiter stepped away, the silence settled again between them. But this time, it wasn't awkward. It was weighted. Full. I don't know where to begin, Michael finally admitted. Rachel looked out the window. Maybe start with why you're really here. He nodded slowly. I came back to New York for business, to expand. But then I stayed because I didn't know how to leave again. That's not an answer. He took a breath. Because something in me hoped I'd run into you. She blinked. After 12 years? I never forgot you. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. Do you even know what that sounds like? Yes. Like a fantasy. Like a rich man playing savior. But that's not it. Rachel, you were the only real thing in my life before everything turned to glass and gold. Her eyes softened, but her walls stayed up. You were taken from me. Your family made sure of that. I know, I hated them for it. Then why didn't you fight? I was 17, powerless and angry and broken. And then everything moved so fast. London, Oxford, business school, my father's death. I told myself I was doing what I had to. And now I realize I was running. Rachel's eyes lingered on his face. She saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers tapped the ceramic mug. He wasn't rehearsed, he wasn't charming, he was raw. Your son, he asked, does he know about me? She laughed softly. You're a pizza customer, that's it. I'd like to meet him. Too soon? He nodded. Okay. Silence again, but softer now. Rachel sipped her chai. I still draw, you know. Not like before. Just sketches, napkins, grocery lists. But when I can't breathe, I draw. I want to see them. She chuckled. No, you don't. I do. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded scrap of paper. A child's drawing of a treehouse, clearly done in a rush, lines messy, ink smudged. Lucas asked me once what my dream house looked like. This was the best I could come up with in 30 seconds. He took it from her hands like it was something sacred. It's perfect. You're lying. I'm not. It's you. It's honest. It's safe. Rachel felt her throat tighten. Michael looked at her. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed? Don't, she whispered. Please. Why not? Because I can't afford to wish. Not anymore. He leaned in slightly. Then let me. What do you want from me, Michael? His gaze didn't waver. Time. Conversation. Maybe a second chance. She laughed, bitter and sweet. You think a few coffees will undo 12 years? No. But maybe they can start something new. She studied him, the crease near his left eye when he smiled. The way he never touched his phone once, the weight behind his words. I don't have much to give, she said, just honesty and limitations. That's all I'm asking. Their drinks grew cold. The sky turned from gray to gold. And by the time they stood, something between them had shifted, just slightly. Outside, Michael offered to walk her home. She declined, but she didn't say no to tomorrow. Rachel didn't know why she said yes to another meeting. Maybe it was the quiet way Michael had listened the day before. Maybe it was the way he hadn't tried to fix her, only see her. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because some part of her, the part that still believed in second chances, wanted to feel again. The cafe they met in wasn't far from where she used to live with her ex-husband. It was modest, the kind of place where you could sit for hours without being bothered. There were mismatched chairs, a radio playing soft jazz in the corner, and the smell of cinnamon and espresso in the air. Michael was already there when she arrived. He stood when she walked in, not out of obligation, but out of something older. Respect. You look. He paused, eyes searching hers. Tired, she offered. Beautiful. She rolled her eyes, but her lips curved just slightly. They ordered again. Chai for her. Black coffee, 2 sugars, for him. They sat near the window, and for a long while neither of them spoke. I almost didn't come, she finally said. I would have waited anyway. Why? Because there's no one else I'd rather sit in silence with. Rachel looked out at the street. People passed by, hurrying through their own quiet storms. I used to come here after work just to sit. Sometimes I'd pretend I was someone else, someone who'd made it. Michael didn't interrupt. He knew better now. She wasn't looking for comfort, just air. I dropped out of college when I found out I was pregnant, she continued. Lucas was a surprise. His father was disappointing. He watched her carefully. Did he hurt you? Not with fists, but indifference cuts deeper sometimes. Her fingers wrapped around her cup. He left before the first ultrasound. I raised Lucas alone. My mum helped when she could, but her health was always fragile. I had dreams, Michael. I wanted to build things. Design homes that held stories, but life built walls instead. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. You still can. She shook her head. You say that like time hasn't passed, like I haven't missed deadlines and chances and everything in between. I say that because I've seen people start over at 60, and you're 32. Her eyes flashed. You don't get it. You've always had choices. That stung, but he didn't argue. She softened. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair. It's okay, he said quietly. You're right. I've had every advantage, but I've also never known what it's like to fight for something with your whole soul. Not like you have. Rachel looked at him, really looked this time. He wasn't the boy she remembered. He was broader now, more grounded, but there was something in his voice, almost reverence. I used to blame you, she whispered, for leaving, for not writing, for not fighting. I blamed myself too, he said. Every year on your birthday I wrote a letter I never sent. I have a drawer full of them. She blinked, surprised. Why didn't you? Because I thought you hated me. I did. Silence. Then laughter. Soft, real, bittersweet. I thought you'd married some heiress in Dubai and forgotten me, she teased. I thought you'd married a musician and moved to Paris. Rachel smiled. Not quite. Their food arrived, croissants and eggs, though neither of them touched their plates. Michael finally said, I remember everything, your handwriting, the way you drew stars in your margins, the way you used to hum when you were nervous. Rachel laughed, caught off guard. I still do that. I noticed. Their eyes met and held. There it was again, that thing neither of them wanted to name yet. Recognition, not just of the past, but of something reawakening. Michael cleared his throat. Tell me about Lucas. Her smile softened. He's funny and curious. He loves airplanes and chess. He says he wants to be an inventor. He has this wild imagination. Every night he asks me if I'm proud of him. And what do you say? That I'm proud of him even when I'm too tired to say it out loud. Michael was quiet for a moment. Can I meet him? Someday? She hesitated. Maybe. He accepted it with a nod. They sat there for another hour, talking about books, music, what she'd sketch if she ever had time again. He told her about the pressure of carrying his father's legacy, about the loneliness of boardrooms and private planes, and somewhere in between, they began to laugh again. When the check came, Rachel reached for her wallet. I've got it, Michael said. I can pay. I know. But let me, just this once. She relented. Outside, the wind picked up, tugging at her scarf. I should go, she said, pulling her coat tighter. Rachel, he said softly, thank you. For what? For trusting me. Even for just a little while. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at him, really looked. And in his eyes, she didn't see pity. She saw something else. Maybe still love. Maybe something new. I don't know what this is, she whispered. It's not a trap. It's not a game. It's just you and me. Again. Maybe. She nodded once. We'll see. And with that, she walked away. Slow, steady, heart thudding. Michael didn't follow. He only watched her until she disappeared into the crowd, holding onto the sound of her laugh like a sacred thing. The day had started like any other. Rachel woke early, brushed Lucas's hair as he munched on toast, packed his lunch, and reminded him, again, not to forget his scarf. He grumbled like most 12-year-olds, but kissed her cheek anyway. He always did. That small gesture kept her going longer than he would ever know. She had deliveries scheduled through midday, bills to sort in the afternoon, and a stop at the pharmacy to pick up her mother's medication. Her world ran on alarms, reminders, and invisible threads of exhaustion, barely holding her together. By noon, the clouds had thickened over Brooklyn. She was in the back of a grocery store counting crumpled bills to pay for bread, milk, and tissues when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something deep inside, a mother's instinct, told her to answer. Mrs. Thompson? The voice on the other end was rushed, tight. This is Nurse Haley from Brighton Elementary. Your son, Lucas, he had an accident on the playground. He fell from the jungle gym and hit his head. He's conscious but disoriented. We're calling an ambulance. He needs to be seen immediately." Rachel's world tilted. The grocery bag slipped from her hands, milk spilling across the floor. I'm coming," she stammered, grabbing her coat. "Which hospital?" they told her. She ran. Outside, the wind whipped at her cheeks as she fumbled for her phone. Hands shaking, she tried to hail a cab. None stopped. Her fingers refused to work. Panic made her dizzy. Without thinking, she called the last person she expected to rely on, Michael. He answered on the second ring. "Rachel?" "Lucas," she gasped. He fell. He hit his head. "They're taking him to Mercy General." "Joyce, I can't get there fast enough. I'm on my way. Stay where you are." 12 minutes later, his black car pulled up beside her. She climbed in, trembling, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Michael didn't speak. He just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching silently to cover hers. She didn't pull away. When they arrived at the hospital, she bolted inside, breath ragged. "Lucas Thompson," she told the receptionist. 12, playground accident. They directed her to a curtained room in the pediatric wing. Rachel stepped in and froze. Lucas lay on a hospital bed, his head bandaged, his face pale but calm. A nurse adjusted his IV. "Mum," he murmured. She rushed to his side, brushing his curls from his forehead. "I'm here, baby, I'm here." He fell backward, the nurse explained. "Concussion likely. We're doing scans now just to be safe. But he's stable." Rachel nodded, tears spilling freely. Relief and fear tangled in her chest. She kissed Lucas's hand, then looked up, and found Michael standing silently at the doorway. He hadn't left. The doctor came in next, asking questions, explaining tests, recommending an overnight observation. Rachel listened, nodded, asked what she could. Then came the paperwork, the part that always made her stomach turn. "We'll need insurance details," the nurse said. Rachel froze. I don't have any," she whispered. The nurse blinked. "Then there will be an out-of-pocket deposit required before the scans. I'll cover it," Michael interrupted. Rachel turned sharply. "No." He stepped forward. "Rachel, I said no." The nurse looked between them, awkward. Michael met her eyes. "Let me help." Her pride roared in her ears, but Lucas was pale and still, his breath shallow. She closed her eyes. "Fine, but it's a loan. I'll pay you back. Every cent." He didn't argue. After the nurse left, Rachel sat beside Lucas, holding his hand while Michael stood nearby, giving space but not leaving. Hours passed in tense silence. Lucas slept. Rachel barely blinked. Finally, she turned to him. "Why did you come?" Michael looked at her, his voice low. "Because I couldn't imagine you going through this alone." Rachel swallowed. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he said. "I did." A long silence stretched between them. "When I called you," she admitted, "I didn't know what I was doing. I just needed someone." Michael's expression softened. "I'll always come when you call." She looked down, blinking back tears. "That terrifies me." "I know." Later that night, Lucas was moved to a private observation room. Rachel didn't ask who arranged it. She didn't have the energy to fight anymore. She sat in the chair by the bed, shoes kicked off, jacket folded across her lap. Michael brought her coffee. She accepted it wordlessly. "You should go," she said eventually. "I'm not leaving you alone here. I've done this before." "I know, but not this time." She didn't answer. Michael leaned against the wall, watching her trace her fingers through Lucas's hair. "Does he know his father?" he asked quietly. "No." Michael hesitated. "Can I be part of his life?" Rachel looked at him, stunned. "You barely know him." "I want to." She looked away. "Let's see how the scan goes first." He nodded. "Fair enough." In the stillness that followed, the monitor beeped softly, and the room dimmed into quiet. Rachel finally whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not turning this into something about you." "I wouldn't dare," he said gently. She almost smiled. That night, as Lucas slept, and her head finally leaned against the hospital wall, Rachel realized something she hadn't dared admit in years. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. 3 days after Lucas was discharged from the hospital, the sky over Brooklyn turned a dull gray, mirroring Rachel's nerves. She stood in the doorway of her apartment, wiping her hands on a dish towel, heart thudding harder with every second that passed. Today wasn't just any day. Today Michael was coming over, for the first time. He'd offered to check on Lucas after school, bringing along a new chess set he'd ordered, just because. Rachel had tried to decline. He'd insisted. And now, as she glanced around her apartment, tiny kitchen, uneven floor tiles, water stain on the ceiling, she suddenly felt exposed. The knock came at exactly 4 o'clock. Lucas opened the door before she could stop him. "Hey, Mr. Al-Sayed," he beamed. Michael smiled warmly. "Hi, champ, you feeling better?" Lucas nodded. "I'm not dizzy anymore. Want to see my new drawings?" Michael stepped inside, carefully taking off his shoes. "I'd love to." Rachel hovered nearby, her eyes darting between them. "Lucas, maybe show him later. Mum's still resting." But it was too late. Grace Thompson, frail and wrapped in a floral blanket, appeared slowly at the hallway entrance. Her voice was clear, sharp. "So this is him." Rachel's spine straightened. Michael moved first. "Mrs. Thompson," he said with respect, extending his hand. "It's good to meet you." Grace didn't shake it. She simply looked him up and down. "You're the one who disappeared," Rachel interjected quickly. "Mom, it's not—" Grace raised a finger. "No, he should hear this." Michael didn't flinch. "You left her," Grace said, voice soft but lethal. "Left her to raise a boy, to bury her dreams, to hold the world up while it collapsed around her." "I didn't choose to leave," he said, calm and honest, "but I stayed away for too long. That part is mine to carry." Grace blinked. Michael continued, "I can't undo the years. I won't insult Rachel by pretending I can. But I'm here now. Not out of guilt, because I care." Rachel closed her eyes for a moment. Her throat tightened. Grace walked slowly to the couch. "You're rich, aren't you?" "Yes." "Used to getting what you want?" "I was. I'm learning that the things that matter can't be bought." For a long moment, only the sound of the radiator filled the room. Grace sighed. "You fed my daughter soup in a hospital room, paid a few bills, and now you think you belong here?" "No," Michael replied. "But I want to." Rachel stood frozen, heart caught in her ribs. She had never seen Michael this still, not defensive, not persuasive, just present. Lucas returned, holding his sketchpad. "Grandma, look, he got me a fancy chessboard, real wood and everything." Grace raised a tired brow. "Did he now?" Michael knelt beside Lucas. "Want to show me your favorite piece?" Lucas grinned and ran to his room. Grace leaned toward Rachel. "You trust him?" Rachel hesitated. "I don't know. But I'm trying." Grace nodded slowly, then turned her gaze back to Michael. "Just don't break my girl again. She won't survive it twice." "I won't." Later that evening, Rachel stood beside Michael at the apartment door. "I didn't expect that," he admitted. "She's protective. She's right to be." Rachel sighed. "This isn't your world, Michael." "But you are." She looked away, biting her bottom lip. "We sleep on a pull-out couch. The oven only works on Tuesdays. The roof leaks every time it rains. This is my life. And it's real," he said gently. "You think I want marble floors and silent hallways for the rest of mine?" She blinked. "I want messy, loud, alive. You, Lucas, all of it." Rachel's heart thudded. "You're not ashamed of me?" she asked quietly. Michael stepped closer. "Rachel, I'm in awe of you." She couldn't speak. Her breath caught somewhere between a sob and a laugh. "I know this doesn't fix anything," he added. "But I meant what I said in that hospital. I'm not walking away this time." Lucas appeared again, barefoot, sleepy. "Are you staying for dinner?" Michael smiled. "If your mom lets me." Rachel met his eyes, unsure of what she saw there, promise or danger, or both. "Mac and cheese," she said finally. "But it's the boxed kind." "Sounds perfect." And as they sat later at the small chipped table, plastic forks in hand, laughter echoing in the cramped kitchen, Rachel looked at the man who once disappeared and wondered if he'd come back to stay. A week had passed since Michael's quiet invasion into Rachel's world. A week of short visits, warm meals, board games, and slow, cautious laughter echoing through their apartment. Lucas adored him. Grace, though still skeptical, had stopped asking biting questions. And Rachel was unraveling in ways she hadn't allowed herself in years. One morning, after Lucas had left for school and Grace had fallen asleep after her medication, Michael knocked again, this time carrying no gifts, no food, no distractions. Just purpose. "I need 15 minutes, he said as Rachel let him in, still in her faded hoodie and messy bun. 15, she asked, eyebrow raised. 10 if you hate what I have to say. She sighed, folding her arms. Go on. He sat at the edge of the couch, posture nervous but determined. I have a proposal. Her arms crossed tighter. Michael, hear me out. She didn't respond, so he continued. There's an opening at my company, executive assistant. It's a demanding position, high pressure but flexible. And I trust you. She blinked, caught off guard. I know you haven't worked in that kind of environment in a while, but you're organized, you're quick, and you're already managing 5 lives on a shoestring. That's more impressive than most resumes I've seen. Rachel didn't speak. The job pays well, benefits included, health insurance, for you and your family. Still nothing. And I want to help you go back to school. That broke the silence. Rachel laughed, a short, bitter sound. What? You wanted to be an architect. You told me that 10 years ago with stars in your eyes. I also told you I live paycheck to paycheck. I'll cover tuition. No, it's not charity. It feels like it. Michael stood slowly. I'm offering you what you deserve, Rachel. A way out. A way forward. She shook her head. Why me? Because I believe in you. Because you're brilliant. And because you never stopped dreaming, even when the world tried to beat it out of you. Her voice lowered. You don't get to save me. I'm not. I'm inviting you to save yourself. She turned away, trembling. Michael didn't press. He walked to the door, pausing only once. You don't have to say yes now, but the offer stands, always. And then he left. For 3 days she avoided him. She went about her routine like a machine, meals, deliveries, bills. Her chest tightened every time she thought about his words. School, career, insurance. It sounded like freedom and like debt. Grace noticed the difference. What's bothering you, sweetheart? She asked gently one evening. Nothing, Rachel lied. Grace just smiled. He offered you something big, didn't he? Rachel stiffened. He wants to fix things, she said, like a man who doesn't know what being broken really means. Or maybe, Grace replied softly, he's offering a hammer. Rachel looked at her mother, startled. Sometimes help is just a tool. You still have to build the life yourself. That night, Rachel stared at her sketchbook long after the lights were out. Pages filled with lines, rooftops, bridges, staircases, dreams she used to whisper in the dark. She thought of Lucas, of the ER visit, of the check she couldn't have written. She thought of how tired she was, bone-deep tired, from holding up the sky alone. The next morning, she showed up at Michael's office. She walked through glass doors that gleamed like ambition itself, past assistants in tailored suits and buzzing phones. The receptionist blinked at her sweatshirt and ponytail, but smiled politely. I have a meeting, Rachel said, steady. Michael appeared in less than a minute, eyes wide. You came. I have questions, she said, arms crossed. Of course. He led her into a private conference room. The city stretched behind them through towering windows, but she didn't look out. She looked at him. I don't want pity. You won't get it. I don't want to be your project. You're not. I don't trust easy. I'll earn it. She hesitated. I want a real job, real training, no shortcuts. Michael smiled. Good, because I don't do shortcuts. A long pause, Rachel exhaled. Then I'll try. He didn't move, didn't cheer. He just whispered, thank you. Her first week was a blur. Corporate towers, tight schedules, daily meetings, deadlines. She stumbled, adapted, studied. Michael didn't coddle her, but he checked in, quietly, supportively, like a bridge beneath her feet. She came home exhausted, but with something she hadn't felt in years. Pride, Lucas noticed. "You smile more," he said one night. Rachel ruffled his hair. "Do I?" He nodded. "You look lighter." She bit back a tear. "Maybe I am." Michael stopped by on Friday evening. Lucas greeted him with excitement, dragging him to the table to play chess. As Rachel watched them, she sat quietly beside Grace, who sipped tea with a knowing smile. "You took the job," her mother said. "I did." "You're scared?" "Yes." "But you're alive again." Rachel looked at her mother, then at Michael and Lucas laughing across the table. "Yes," she whispered. "I think I am." The invitation came on a Wednesday. Michael had scheduled a virtual board meeting with his company's senior executives in Dubai. Routine, expected, nothing out of the ordinary. But this time his mother, Layla Al-Sayed, had asked to join. That in itself was unusual. She rarely attended unless the matter was deeply personal. He knew what was coming. Rachel had started working full-time. Her days were filled with meetings, emails, learning corporate systems, and trying not to let the fear of failure consume her. Michael never hovered, but his presence was felt. In how the staff treated her, in the way he always paused to ask if she'd eaten. That morning he sent her a message. "Family call today might get difficult, just a heads up." She stared at it for a long time before replying with a single word, "Okay." The boardroom in the Manhattan office buzzed with quiet tension. Screens lit up with the faces of distant executives, sharp suits, polished smiles, some in English, some speaking Arabic. Then Layla's face appeared on screen, elegant, regal, cold. She wore her traditional attire, her eyes lined with dignity and power. "Michael," she said, not unkindly, "we hear you've been distracted." He smiled calmly. "No, just evolving." A murmur passed through the line. One of the cousins, Nadir, interjected. "We've heard things about a woman, an American." "Her name is Rachel," Michael said evenly. "And yes, she's American." Layla's lips tightened. "She is divorced. She has a child. She has a name, and her son's name is Lucas." A pause. "And she works at your company now?" another uncle asked. "Yes." "In what capacity?" Michael leaned forward. "As my assistant. And one day, when she finishes her architecture degree, perhaps more." Nadir scoffed. "You could have anyone." Michael didn't blink. "And I chose her." The room fell still. Layla sighed. "Michael, you are the only son of your father. You carry the legacy. We do not question your choices in business, but in marriage, there are expectations." "I'm aware. We had hopes," she said carefully. "There are families, good families, who have waited for your attention. Women with education, wealth, lineage." Michael's voice was calm. "Rachel has more integrity than most of them combined. She's brilliant, resilient, and she knows struggle. She is not one of us." "No," he agreed. "She's better." The silence after that was deafening. Finally, Layla spoke again, softly. "You would give up our approval for her?" "I don't need your approval," he said gently. "But I had hoped for your blessing." Nadir's voice returned colder. "You're embarrassing us." "No," Michael said. "I'm honoring the only person who ever made me feel alive." His eyes burned into the screen. "I love her." Rachel, listening from just outside the boardroom through the glass, froze. The words echoed in her ears like thunder. She hadn't expected them, not like this. Not in front of his family, not as a declaration to the world. Inside, Michael sat still, unapologetic. "I won't hide her," he continued. "I won't pretend she's a mistake. If that costs me your silence, so be it. But you will never question her worth again." He ended the call before anyone could speak. The room emptied slowly, no one daring to look him in the eye. When he stepped outside, Rachel stood near the wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I did." "They'll hate me. Maybe. But they don't know you. That's their loss." She looked down. "You said you love me." "I meant it." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Say something," he whispered. "I don't know how to believe you." He took a step closer. "Then let me prove it." She shook her head, eyes brimming. "You always had power. I never did. You don't know what it's like to live on crumbs, of food, of affection, of hope." "I don't," he admitted, "but I want to understand." Rachel wiped a tear with the back of her hand. "You scared me." Michael's gaze softened. "Why?" "Because I almost believed I was unlovable, until you said otherwise." He reached out slowly, giving her space to retreat. She didn't. "I'm not perfect," he said, "and I can't erase the past. But I can fight for the future." Rachel looked into his eyes. They weren't promising heaven, just honesty. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "I'll wait." She exhaled, shaky. "I think I might love you too." He smiled but didn't move. He just nodded as if to say, "That's enough, for now." The offer didn't come as a question. It came as a quiet statement, spoken in the soft pause between one of Lucas's bedtime stories and a sip of lukewarm tea on the couch. Michael had come over that night with takeout and a board game tucked under his arm. Grace had been coughing more, and Rachel looked like she hadn't slept in days. "You should move in," he said simply. "All of you." Rachel blinked. "Excuse me?" Michael leaned forward. "I have the space, the medical staff, the security, the silence. Your mom needs care, Lucas needs stability, and you deserve to breathe." She stared at him. "You think that's easy for me?" "No. I think it's hard as hell, but I'm asking anyway." She didn't answer that night. It took 3 more conversations, 2 sleepless nights, and a gentle nudge from Grace before Rachel finally said yes. "I'll try," she told him, "but I need boundaries." "Set them," Michael said. And just like that, 2 worlds collided. The move was quiet. Lucas packed his few belongings with the kind of excitement only a child could hold. Grace, though weary, smiled at the thought of soft sheets and round-the-clock nurses. Rachel felt something entirely different. Guilt, fear, wonder. Michael sent 2 staff members to help, but let Rachel lead. The apartment emptied quickly. Most of their things could fit in 2 cars. She stood in the doorway of her old home, her hand resting on the doorframe, remembering the hundreds of nights she cried there. Then she walked away without looking back. The penthouse was pristine, still cold in its luxury, but it didn't take long for the air to shift. Lucas's laughter filled the silence. His sneakers lined up messily by the elevator. Grace's quilt now draped over a leather chair, and Rachel's sketchbooks began appearing beside Michael's spreadsheets. The first night, they all ate dinner together. Take out again, at a long dining table too elegant for ketchup packets and orange juice. But it worked. Michael poured water for Grace, listened to Lucas's stories about space rockets and chicken nuggets, and Rachel just watched her son laugh, watched her mother eat, watched a man she once loved fit into their chaos without trying to fix it. Later, while Lucas brushed his teeth beside a gold faucet, he asked, "Are we rich now?" Rachel knelt beside him. "No, baby, we're just in a better place." He nodded, not quite understanding. "But will we go back home?" She smiled softly. "I don't know. Maybe this is home now." Michael didn't sleep beside her that night. They hadn't crossed that line again, not since the declaration. But when she walked past the guest suite where he now stayed, the door was slightly open. She paused. He looked up from his book. "Can't sleep. Too quiet," she admitted. "Funny. I used to think it was too loud." They shared a smile. Rachel walked away, but the smile stayed. The following weeks moved slowly. Rachel juggled her job, her studies. She had officially re-enrolled in online architecture courses and managing the emotional adjustment of her entire family. Grace had a nurse now, someone who helped with meals and meds, which gave Rachel breathing room she'd forgotten how to use. Michael made space for them without fanfare. He never hovered, but he noticed. He noticed when Lucas's voice trembled during math homework and sat with him for 20 minutes until he smiled again. He noticed when Grace cried quietly in the morning and brought her chamomile tea before Rachel could. He noticed when Rachel's eyes dulled after long workdays and left her notes in the kitchen. "You're doing better than you think. There's milk in the fridge, and a world inside your hands. One night, after Lucas had fallen asleep and the penthouse lay under the hush of city light, Rachel stood alone in the living room. The skyline blinked beyond the glass. She was barefoot, wrapped in a sweater, a sketchpad clutched to her chest. Michael found her there. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I used to think I'd die in that apartment." He said nothing, let her speak. "I never thought I'd get out, not just physically, but emotionally. You're not alone anymore." She looked at him, eyes damp. "That's the part I still don't know how to believe." Michael stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to stop him. She didn't. "I'm not perfect," he said, "but I'm staying." Rachel lowered her sketchpad. "Why me, Michael?" "Because you make everything I built feel worth it." She closed the space between them, not fully, not with a kiss, but by leaning her head on his shoulder. They stood like that for a long time. A man who once had everything but love, a woman who had only love and lost everything. And in the stillness, they began to understand what a new life really meant. Not grandeur, not perfection, but belonging. Grace passed on a Thursday morning. It was quiet. The nurse had stepped out to refill her tea, and Rachel had gone to check on Lucas's breakfast. When she returned to the room, something had shifted. Her mother's face was calm, too calm. Rachel froze in the doorway. The sun was pouring in through the large windows, bathing the bed in soft gold. Grace's hands were folded neatly, and her chest no longer rose and fell. For a moment, Rachel couldn't move. The world narrowed, tightened. Then she collapsed beside the bed, clutching her mother's hands as if she could hold her here a moment longer. But the silence was final. Michael arrived minutes later. No one had called him. He just knew. He found Rachel kneeling at her mother's bedside, eyes red, whispering something only Grace could hear. He didn't speak, just knelt beside her and held her trembling body against his chest. They stayed like that until the sun had moved higher in the sky, and the nurse returned with tears already in her eyes. The funeral was held 2 days later. Rachel didn't want something grand. Grace wouldn't have liked that. She chose a small cemetery near Prospect Park, under a maple tree that shed golden leaves like memories falling all around them. Lucas held her hand the entire time. Michael stood silently behind her, a quiet shield against the wind. There were no speeches, no long eulogies, just a handful of people who had known Grace, who had witnessed her strength, and now came to say goodbye. Rachel placed a single lily on the casket. "She said she'd wait until I was safe," she whispered. "I guess she finally believed I was." After the burial, the guests trickled away, leaving Rachel, Lucas, and Michael beneath the trees. She turned to go, then stopped. A black car had pulled up near the cemetery gates. From it stepped a woman draped in a muted beige coat, her grey hair pinned neatly, her presence composed but unfamiliar. Michael's eyes widened. "Mother!" Layla walked toward them, flanked by 2 of his aunts. No guards, no entourage, just family. Rachel instinctively took a step back. Layla stopped in front of them, her gaze not hard but heavy. "I heard about your mother," she said, looking directly at Rachel. "I came to pay my respects." Rachel's mouth parted in disbelief. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." She looked down at the grave, then back up. "She raised you with grace. It's fitting her name was the same." Silence hung between them. Layla continued, her voice quieter. "When you're raised in a world of legacy and power, it's easy to forget that strength doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it looks like a mother holding her daughter together with nothing but will." Rachel's throat tightened. "I was wrong," Layla said finally. "To judge you before knowing you, to fear the difference instead of honoring it." Rachel blinked, stunned. Michael placed a hand on his mother's arm. "Why now?" She looked at him, then at Lucas. "Because I see what it's done to you." To her, to him. "You're not the man your father was. You're softer, wiser, better, and I think that's because of them." Lucas peeked up at her, uncertain. Layla knelt beside him. "And you must be Lucas." He nodded slowly. She reached into her pocket and handed him a small carved wooden camel. "This belonged to your grandfather. He used to say it reminded him to walk slow through storms." Lucas clutched it carefully. "Thank you." Layla stood again. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm here, if you'll have me." Rachel didn't respond. She looked to Michael, to Lucas, to the grave behind her. Then she nodded. "Come by sometime," she said softly. "Not as a visitor, as family." Layla's eyes filled, but she blinked them dry. "I'd like that." That night, the penthouse was dim and quiet. Lucas had fallen asleep early, holding the wooden camel in one hand. Rachel sat in the living room, her mother's quilt over her lap, staring at nothing. Michael brought her tea and sat beside her. "She came," Rachel said. He nodded. "I didn't ask her to. She said I made you better." Michael smiled faintly. "She's not wrong." Rachel leaned into him. "I'm scared, Michael. Scared to be without her." "You're not." "I feel like half of me is gone." "Then let me help carry the rest." She looked at him. "What if I break?" "Then I'll be there when you rebuild." For the first time in days, Rachel let herself cry. Not the quiet tears she hid from Lucas, but deep guttural sobs that tore through her. Michael didn't speak. He just held her, steady and sure, the way no one ever had. When the tears faded, and the city lights twinkled like stars that refused to leave, Rachel whispered, "I don't know what comes next." Michael pressed his lips to her forehead. "Whatever it is," he said, "you won't face it alone." It was 6 months after Grace's passing when Michael planned it. He didn't do it with fanfare. No cameras, no orchestra on the rooftop or diamond rings tucked into champagne. He did it the way Rachel had taught him to do everything worth doing, quietly, with intention, with heart. It was a Sunday morning, and the city was still wrapped in mist. The penthouse smelled of pancakes and coffee, and Lucas was humming somewhere in the background, flipping through a book of space facts. Rachel had just stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a robe, towel around her head, when she walked into the kitchen and froze. There, on the long marble island, was a sketchpad. Her sketchpad. Open to a drawing she hadn't finished. It was the treehouse. The same one she had once drawn with Lucas in mind, but now it had more detail. Michael's careful pencil strokes filling in the things she'd left blank. A soft staircase, a little telescope, a wind chime. And beneath it, written in her handwriting from a note long ago, "If love were a place, I'd build it here." She turned, and he was already on one knee. No velvet box, just his hand, open. The ring wasn't massive, but it was beautiful, simple. Gold, with a small sapphire in the center, her mother's birthstone. Her breath caught. "Rachel," he began, voice steady, "I don't want a perfect wedding. I don't want fanfare or magazine spreads or designer vows. I just want you, every morning. Every late-night cup of tea, every argument, every peace offering. You're already my home, let me be yours." Tears filled her eyes. "I want Lucas to grow up seeing what love looks like when it stays," he continued. "And I want your mother to know her daughter is safe. Not because I rescued you, but because you let me walk beside you." She stared at him, then down at the ring, then back at him, and slowly she knelt too. "I don't need a castle," she whispered. "I just want to keep building that treehouse." He smiled, trembling. "So is that a—" "Yes," she breathed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Yes." Lucas peeked in, then ran over, yelling, "Wait, are we getting married?" Michael scooped him into a hug. "Looks like it, buddy," Lucas beamed. "Can I be best man?" "Of course," Rachel said, laughing through tears. The wedding took place in Dubai 6 months later. Layla offered her home's private garden for the ceremony. Rachel had hesitated at first, unsure if she truly belonged there, but Layla had insisted. "You are family now, and this place should reflect it." The garden was breathtaking. White lanterns swayed in the breeze. Jasmine perfumed the air, and a shallow reflecting pool mirrored the soft blush of sunset. Rachel wore a simple ivory dress, no veil, no diamonds. Her hair flowed freely, held back by a silver pin that once belonged to Grace. Michael waited for her beneath an arch of olive branches and white orchids. When she walked toward him, hand in hand with Lucas, there wasn't a single dry eye in the crowd, not even Layla's. She stood beside Rachel as they exchanged vows, her presence a quiet blessing. Rachel's voice trembled. "You are my storm and my stillness, my beginning and my shelter. I never believed in forever until you made me feel it without saying a word." Michael took her hands. "You taught me to see again, to listen, to choose what matters. I will never leave the room when things get hard. I'll never unlove you, not even for a second." They kissed as the call to prayer echoed distantly, soft and reverent. The reception was a blur of dancing, shared stories, and slow smiles from people who once doubted and now celebrated. Rachel sat beside Michael, watching Lucas try to teach his Arabic cousins how to do the chicken dance. She laughed, barefoot now, heels long since abandoned. Her head rested on Michael's shoulder. Layla approached quietly and sat beside her. "He looks happy," she said. Rachel nodded. "He is. And so are you." Rachel turned to her. "I wasn't sure I'd be welcome here." Layla placed a hand over hers. "You didn't enter our family, you transformed it." A beat. "Thank you," Rachel said. "For what?" "For showing up when it mattered." Layla's eyes grew misty. "You remind me of myself, before I became what others expected me to be." They sat in silence, two women from different worlds, finding common ground in grief, resilience, and love. That night, Michael carried Rachel up the stairs of the Dubai villa. She protested, laughing, "I can walk." "I waited 15 years for this," he grinned. "Let me have my moment." When they reached the room, he set her down gently. She looked around at the roses, the soft lights, the quiet. Then back at him. "This doesn't feel like a fairy tale," she said. "It's not," he replied. "It's better, it's real." And when they kissed, it wasn't the passionate rush of a storybook ending. It was the slow, certain meeting of two people who had been lost and had finally come home. The baby cried just before dawn, not the frantic wailing of fear or discomfort, but a soft, insistent sound, like a heartbeat in the dark. Rachel stirred first. She blinked against the dim light coming through the sheer curtains, her body moving instinctively toward the bassinet beside their bed. "She's hungry," she murmured, lifting the tiny bundle into her arms. Michael sat up, rubbing his eyes. "I can heat a bottle. She prefers me." He smiled, still groggy. "Don't we all?" They laughed quietly, careful not to wake Lucas, who had fallen asleep on the couch in the living room after a movie night-turned nap. The baby's name was Grace, a quiet tribute, a full circle. Rachel sat in the rocking chair near the window, the city still wrapped in morning silence. She cradled Grace against her chest, humming softly, as Michael leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, just watching. "I still can't believe she's ours," he whispered. Rachel looked up. "Sometimes I think I dreamed it all. That I'll wake up back in that old apartment, running late for deliveries." "But you don't," he said. "No," she smiled. "Now I wake up to diapers and spilled juice, and a daughter who looks like she's already judging my fashion choices." Michael chuckled. "She's only 10 weeks old, and already disappointed in my sock game." He walked over and crouched beside her, brushing his fingers along the baby's cheek. "She has your mouth. And your eyes. And your stubbornness," they said in unison, then laughed. The apartment had changed. Still the penthouse, still the towering view of Manhattan. But it no longer felt like a showroom. There were fingerprints on the fridge, crayon marks on the baseboards, books stacked beside the couch, and burp cloths draped over the leather armrest. There was life here now. Lucas had a room filled with space posters, a telescope by the window, and a drawer full of Matchbox cars. He was thriving, happier, calmer, more confident. He had even begun calling Michael Dad, unprompted, one quiet night after dinner. Rachel hadn't cried then. But later, alone in the kitchen, she did. Michael never said anything. He just pulled her close and let her feel it. Rachel had finished her architecture degree 2 weeks ago. Her final project, a community center designed for single mothers and their children, was already drawing attention. Michael had framed her graduation photo and placed it beside his awards in his office. "She belongs here," he told anyone who asked. "Not because she's my wife, because she's brilliant." She had laughed at him when he said it, but her hand had squeezed his a little tighter. Every Sunday they visited Grace's grave in Prospect Park. Lucas picked the flowers. Rachel brought tea. Michael always stood a few paces back, giving her space. One day Rachel whispered, "She would have liked you." Michael knelt beside her. "I hope so. You let me come undone," she said, and never once tried to fix it. He didn't respond. She reached for his hand. "Thank you for that." He kissed her knuckles. "Thank you for letting me stay." That evening, they ordered pizza, from the same place where it all began. Rachel laughed when the delivery guy arrived and stared at the address. "I've never been this high up," he said, eyes wide. "Careful," Rachel smiled. "You might fall in love." Michael chuckled from the kitchen. "Worked for me." They ate on the living room floor, Lucas, baby Grace between them in her seat, and music playing low in the background. Just noise, just love. Rachel leaned back, closing her eyes. "You okay?" Michael asked. She nodded. "Just thinking." "About?" "How it all started. A pizza, a door, a second chance." He moved beside her. "You walked away from that door, and you were still standing there." Michael wrapped his arm around her. "Always will be." Rachel opened her eyes, taking in the soft light, her family, the sound of Grace's breathing. She smiled. Everything began with a simple pizza. Michael kissed the top of her head. "And everything changed when you came back." In the end, it wasn't the luxury, nor the titles, nor the promises that saved her. It was the quiet choice of someone who stayed when the whole world had already gone. It was the love that didn't shout, but remained, the one that builds, rebuilds, and waits. Because sometimes all someone needs is to be seen. And maybe deep down, this story also speaks of us. Emotional CTA. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know. Where are you listening to this message from? Your support is what allows us to continue bringing stories like this.